Hi everyone. Hey, do you go to the farmers markets at all? I did, but I didn't find any farmers that I liked. So, I bought some fresh produce instead. Welcome to week 7 of our Autumn Wonders Sew Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website, ilovetomakequilts.com. Jump over there, download this week's free pattern, come with me, and I'll show you how I do it. No singing this week, folks, I promise. I just couldn't contain myself last week. I was thinking about beginnings and, well, the rest is history. But once again, we do begin by having all of our pieces and parts cut out as per our directions. You will notice, though, that for my half square triangles, I have a medium fabric in place of the dark fabric that is suggested on the pattern. That's just how I was putting this block together. So we are going to start by making the half square triangles, and for that we need to take our 2 large background squares and our 2 large dark, in inverted commas, fabric. We'll draw a line from corner to corner in one direction on our background squares, and we'll place these right sides together with the dark squares and take it to our machine and stitch 1/4 inch on each side of the drawn line. Now that we've stitched on each side of our drawn line, it's time to just give these a quick press to set those stitches and straighten any pulling out before we cut these in half along our drawn line and then press towards the darker of the 2 fabrics. We'll then need to trim these down so that they fit our block perfectly. Now, to trim down the blocks, you can use any method you prefer, and in all of my videos I do it 2 at a time and with a standard square quilting ruler. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see some of the other ways that you can trim down your half square triangles. I don't have a lot of the tools, and I just find doing 2 at a time the easiest and best method for me. So we'll grab our square ruler and we'll line our 45-degree diagonal line up on our stitching line. We'll make sure that we have enough fabric outside our trim down measurement of 4.5 inches on all 4 sides before trimming the first 2 sides. We'll then rotate that block around, and because I am doing them 2 at a time, I have to be careful. We'll line up our 4.5 inch trim down measurement now on those freshly cut sides. We'll make sure that our diagonal line is still on our stitching line, and then we'll trim those last 2 sides. We'll get the other 2 out of the way, and then we'll move on to making our little 4-patch units. Set your perfectly trimmed half square triangles to the side, and it's now time that we grab our small medium squares and our small background squares. We're going to start by sewing these together in sets of 2, and then we're going to make 4 patches out of those pairs. We will press to the darker of the 2 fabrics in the first instance, and after we've done our final seam to make it a 4 patch, just pick a direction and press. As I said before, we're now going to take these 8 little 2-patch units and make them into 4 4-patch units. So we'll separate this out into 2 stacks of 4. We'll rotate one of those stacks around so that we are making it a checkerboard, and we'll sew this final seam and press in whichever direction we choose. We now have all of the pieces and parts that we need to make up this week's block, and the final construction, as is the case in 99% of our blocks lately, a 9-patch construction. So we'll lay it out as per the pattern, putting our 4-patch units in each of the corners, taking careful note of the orientation of the darker squares on those 4-patch units, and then the half square triangles go around that center block to create the shape of a friendship star. So you start with your first piece at the top there. You can place that triangle and give it a quarter turn. You've got the next one. Place it there, quarter turn. You've got the next one. That's just the easiest way to figure it out without actually having to think all that much about it. Now that we have this all laid out, we'll start by sewing our vertical seams and finish it with our horizontal seams. We'll talk more about how I press that in a moment. You may or may not have seen throughout that part that I gave it a quick finger press first before sewing on the final blocks on each row. I pressed out towards the 4-patch unit on the top and bottom row, and I pressed in towards that solid square in the center. This will allow us to nest all of our seams when we come to do our horizontal rows in just a moment. Now that we do have these 3 rows done, however, I am going to use the iron and press those in place, and I will do the 2 horizontal seams, and in both instances on the horizontal seams we will press in towards the center. With our final horizontal seam now done and everything pressed to perfection, our block for this week is done. Don't forget, when you share the image of your completed block over at Pat's Facebook group, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan, talk about your adventures at the farmers markets. Well, that's it for another week, folks. And as always, I really love if you could like, share, subscribe. And if you subscribe, well, if you don't, I don't know why. But when you do subscribe, not if, make sure you click that little bell and you'll be notified of all my upcoming videos. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.